Welcome everyone. In today's video we're going to discuss another one of the heavily tested topics, which is also heavily missed and is among a short list of topics primarily responsible for most students failing their test, barbers or cosmetologists, and that is analysis. There's a subject, hair, skin, scalp analysis. If you fail your test, you generally get a printout from the state that breaks down the subject areas, and you will see a subject called hair, skin, and scalp analysis. It is one of the most heavily failed areas of the test, one of the most common areas for students to fail their test, hair, skin, and scalp analysis. Now, it doesn't matter which of the textbooks you have, the Barber textbook, the cosmetology textbook, it's not presented nice and neatly in one chapter. What falls under analysis is get a little wonky sometimes with the technical terms. Alopecia. Alopecia is the fancy Greek word which we're stuck with in our system for hair loss. Now there's a dozen kinds of hair loss. The ones they ask about, androgenic alopecia, alopecia areata, postpartum alopecia. If you speak Latin, you could know instantly what those names mean. Do you speak Latin? Because I don't. Who do you know that does? Some people speak languages based on Latin, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, French. They don't speak Latin. Alopecia, it means hair loss. We would call it baldness. Again, there's a dozen kinds. On your test, postpartum alopecia, hair loss after you have a baby. Alopecia areata, hair loss in certain areas of your head, usually in the back in little circles. Androgenic alopecia, male pattern baldness. Do you know all those things? You do now, and you better know them on test day. Another word, tinea. That's a word you don't hear too much in conversation. Tinea, T-I-N-E-A. It means fungus, or more commonly in English, ringworm. Now you can get fungus or ringworm from the top of your head all the way to the bottom of your feet. If you're a cosmetologist, there's more questions here because you're licensed head to toe, manicures, pedicures. If you're a barber, you're a little bit less you have to know because your license is head and neck. But you do need to know all the kinds of tinea for your head and your neck. And you need to know, perhaps most importantly in the real world and on the test, what do you do if your client has tinea? You stop the service and preferably show them the door fairly quickly, because tinea, fungus, ringworm, is very, very, very contagious. Then you have pityriasis, another great word, pityriasis, dandruff. My teacher told us many, many, many years ago, pity anyone who has dandruff. And I just thought it was funny. I laughed. It stayed in my head forever. Pityriasis, dandruff. There's a couple of kinds of dandruff, and you can expect to see both of them on your test. Several years ago, I answered the phone here at the office. And here's how the man started his conversation. Who the hell knew there was going to be so many questions on pityriasis? I was like, well, obviously you didn't know, because if you did, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Pityriasis is dandruff. There's several kinds of dandruff. There's several causes of dandruff. You better know them on your test day. Then you have pediculosis. Another word you don't hear too much in regular conversation, although you all know what it is. It's lice. Pediculosis. Another medical Latin term. Pedi is the Latin word for foot, like a pedicure or pedals on your bicycle. Locus is the Latin word for crazy, like loco in Spanish. Pediculosis literally translates into English as crazy feet. But no one says you have crazy feet. The doctor will say you have pediculosis. Your mom will say you have lice. When the letter comes home from the school, usually in the fall around Thanksgiving time each year, and says, there's a lice outbreak at the school, please conduct yourself accordingly. Lice is very common, very contagious, especially with children for reasons we're not going to waste our time going into. They don't ask you. Okay? The state asked a very simple question. What do you do when your client has pediculosis? Your book, whether you've got this one, or this one, tells you exactly what to do if your client has pediculosis. Now, other words they like, furuncle and carbuncle, words which just don't really work their way into most conversations. Okay, a furuncle or a carbuncle, it's a bacterial infection. A furuncle is one infected hair follicle. A carbuncle is more than one infected hair follicle. We had a student in our school. She had a gastric bypass surgery and lost about 125 pounds. And she said one day, oh, that's very easy. A carbuncle is a whole bunch. It's a really big furuncle. And if you eat a lot of carbs, you're going to get really big. Everyone laughed, but they didn't forget it. Because sometimes humor is really the best teacher, because you don't forget these funny things. A furuncle is one infected hair follicle with bacteria. A carbuncle is more than one infected hair with the bacteria. And what do you have to do? You have to go to the doctor and get an antibiotic. You, as the barber or the cosmetologist, what do you have to do for your test? Stop the service, ask them to leave, refer them to a doctor. That's what you have to do. And they're going to ask you, what do you do if a person has a facial and has bad acne? What kind of facial do you give them? Again, all three of the books in the facial chapter, which no barber students ever want to read, tells you exactly what to do with an acne facial. And do not be shocked on exam day when they ask you what to do with an acne facial. And finally, they like the word abrasions. A-B-R-A-S-I-O-N-S. Abrasions is a nice, fancy $64 word that doctors like to throw around for scratches. Some people, like myself, scratch the hell out of their heads all the time. I don't know why. Okay, they just do. What the state says, what do you do when your client has abrasions? Now, sometimes it says, what do you do before any service when your client has abrasions? Other times it's more specific and it says, what do you do before a chemical service? Or what do you do before a hair color? What do you do before a permanent wave? What do you do between a chemical relaxer? See, this is my point I got to an earlier video. There's only so many things they can ask. They can ask you a dozen different ways, which is how they get 700, 800, 900 questions in their computer test bank. You don't know which ones you're going to get. And it's not since memorizing. Nobody can memorize 800 or 900 questions, although many students try. You just understand the concept. If your client has abrasions, scratches on their scalp, do not put a chemical on the scratches. It's kind of common sense, I would think. Okay? Don't pour a chemical on scratched open skin. Doesn't matter what kind of chemical. So they can ask a question 5 or 6 different ways. Answer does not change. What do you do when your client has abrasions? You stop the service. Now, one of the dumb questions on the test says, put on gloves. How is putting on gloves going to help your client whose scalp is burning because you put a chemical on top of burnt open skin? It's not going to help at all, okay? But you would be shocked, or maybe not, how many students go for that answer, putting on gloves. Again, we're going to wrap this video up before it gets too long and windy. If you have any questions, give us a call, 760-534-4434. Visit our website, www.cosmetologystateboardexam.com. If you're new to our videos and you're wondering where the other 80 or 90 are, go to the company website, cosmetologystateboardexam.com. Go to the bottom, left-hand corner is an icon. Just click on there. You'll subscribe to all the videos and you'll be good to go. You'll probably learn more than you learned in school. Right? Now, I'm not knocking your school or your teacher. I'm saying they don't prepare you well for the test. And my proof is the national pass rate for barbers is 35%. That means out of every 3 barbers that take their test, only 1 passes on a daily basis. For cosmetologists, it's 50%. For every 100 cosmetologists take it, 50 fail, 50 pass. It's ridiculous that after thousands of dollars and months of your life, only a couple of you are going to pass the test. The teachers do not go into this stuff. Now, before I get bad calls from teachers, some teachers do. The students just don't pay attention. The teacher cannot open your mind and make you listen. They cannot stop you getting high before class, what you think is all funny and giggling, until the day you fail your test 17 times, and I did have a student 17 times. Okay? Give us a call, 760-534-4434. We have a test book. It's $59.95. It gives you every question and answer your state has asked in the last 12 months. We do private tutoring. There's 7 classes. Each class is 1 hour in length. They will walk you through page by page. You can take your highlighter or underline and tell you exactly, here's the question on this page, here's the question on this page, here's the question on this page. It's $199. It's very, very well worthwhile because you will pass the test the next time you take it. Okay? Give us a call, 760-534-4434.